So that means it is the Dynasty Gambit on the Going for Two live network. I'm Devin Deal. You can find me at goingfor2live.com. Trying to been getting the finishing touches on some of my items that I'm getting ready for go there, but let's kick it around to the usual guests here. So a little clap there from Jay. So let's just kick it on over to Jay. How are we doing tonight?
We're doing pretty good, brother. I'm glad to hear that you're getting back in that little writing thing. Can't wait to read some of those articles and see what's going on over there for you. And it's been a hectic week, man. I didn't have a great week last week in fantasy with my teams. So yeah, it's time to make some moves. It's time to, we're getting a crunch time is coming. Trade deadlines are coming for fantasy teams. We got to start looking at something, some of the moves we got to make in order to build our teams, or some of the moves we're going to make to reinforce our teams for next year. So let's see what we got going on tonight.
Right. This is actually one of my favorite times of the year because it's a really good time to be making those type of moves and really determining your future for either this season or for the future in next year in 2023. So definitely one of the funnest times of the season to be trading. People are looking to make trades, so it's a lot easier to get things done. So definitely a fun time. So, and at the bottom here, Vandegrad92, Brian, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, Devin, I'm good. Better than the weather, certainly, in Carolina, as I understand it. A little wind, a little rain. So, looking forward to watching the ground games. And like Jay was saying, it's an interesting time, especially in Dynasty, because I've got a lot of teams that have mathematically right now are in the playoffs. But that being said, are they good enough to compete for the championship? I don't know. So, I'm kind of on that fence deciding which way to go. And the worst thing is you don't want to ruin your future for what is not necessarily your year, but at the same time, you almost owe it to yourself to give yourself a shot. So tough calls out there to be made.
Yeah, I have a really tough call actually in my home dynasty league. It's my most expensive league that I play in, and I thought I was going to be a really bad team this year, so I traded a lot of pieces, which I still have some decent guys. But I have 6 2023 first-round picks going into next year, and I'm currently 6-3. So I'm like, man, do I shove all these chips in, or do I just stay with the course? Because there's a lot of really strong teams on my end are in that league. So I hate those decisions, man. I really thought I was not playing for this year, and now I kind of feel like I am.
Okay. Are you is that a 12-man league or?
It's actually a 10.
10, okay.
So I have 6 of the 10 first-round picks.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely some tough calls to make.
Here's a great way to look at it, though. Look at the league as a whole. Where are you at in points for? Are you top 3, top 4, or are you sitting there and just got lucky to this point and won some games you have lost? And that would help you determine whether you should push some chips and see what happens coming in the playoffs, or you say, you know what, I've overachieved here to this point.
Yeah, a lot of what it is, particularly, which I don't mean to bombard the show with my particular situation here, but I have like the 5th most points, so I'm like right in the middle. But I'm just doing a lot better than like most other teams that I didn't think I'd be doing better than. But I'll keep everyone informed as to what decisions I make going forward in that league, just because I got a lot of ammo, I got a lot of ways I can go, but. Yeah, definitely one of the best times of the year for dynasties. So, all right, so let's get into the show, fellas. So, just going to recap some news and notes from previous week. This week we got Week 10 buys. So, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, New England Patriots, New York Jets. So, a lot of actually big names that we're missing out on again this week. Lamar Jackson, I know Andrews has been knocked up, so maybe he's going to rebound, get healthy. Everyone on the Bengals, Joe Burrow, Mixon's coming off that monster week. Patriots, not really probably getting too much there besides Ramondre Stevenson. A little bit of Jacoby Myers, I guess. And then the Jets, same thing there. There's some upside players there, but Garrett Wilson's been coming on strong. He's showing pretty good rapport with Zach Wilson. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Week 10 buys? Let's start over with you, Jay.
Well, the one that I'm looking forward to is actually the word came out the other day that it looks like Chase will be back after the bye, or could be back after the bye. So that's kind of interesting for Chase owner. And I'm sure some people traded Chase away, seeing that there was a possibility of the IR. and I'm sure they're regretting that choice now. But I'm interested to see. We had 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago where we had 6 teams on bye.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning to see everybody's crunch timing, trying to get their players picked up or whatever, and they got to drop some players. Let's see who's going to be blocked. Or is somebody going to drop a Garrett Wilson? Is somebody going to drop a T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd? To get some points in the line. And if they are, man, if you're sitting there that bottom end team, that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 team, man, you're getting some value right there for next year, later this year, and of course next year. Keep an eye on those waivers on who people have to drop, especially going into these buys.
Definitely. Brian, what are your thoughts on these players from bye this week?
Yeah, I mean, Jay was talking about Jamar Chase, and that's definitely very interesting. But I'm actually more interested in how that impacts the other 2 receivers, being Boyd and Higgins, because in all honesty, I'm trying to think. Right, I know they got beat really bad by the Browns wasn't it? I think the first game that Chase was out, but I forget was that the game right before the bye or no?
No, that was 2 weeks. That was 2 weeks ago. Last week they played.
They were on bye last week, or no, they're on bye this week. They
played Carolina last week, and that's the one where Mixon had his 5 touchdown game and everything. And then I think Atlanta, was that the game that he got hurt? That Chase got hurt, possibly? That was the week before that. That was 2 weeks ago. Or 3 weeks ago.
The week before last week, I forgot about the Carolina game because the receivers did absolutely nothing.
Right.
The week before was against the Browns, and the receivers yet again, and Burrow did absolutely nothing. So what I'm really interested in, Chase is obviously going to get his points and all that, but he actually impacts that offense so much from a passing perspective that will improve all around. I don't know about where Boyd will go with this, but that'll definitely improve Higgins going forward. So.
Yeah, Higgins has kind of been a pretty big disappointment the last couple of weeks, seeing that I thought he was going to be, the true wide receiver 1 on that team, potentially having some big weeks. I have him in a couple leagues, and hasn't really been the best return on investment on that front. Even this whole year, Higgins was really going off last year, was challenging Chase for target leader on the team, everything like that, and quietly had a really good year. So I was hoping to see a little more out of him the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, me too. It might be a good opportunity. I'm not sure if anybody's willing to sell him in Dynasty, but it might be a good opportunity to see if you can't get him for a little bit cheaper than normal.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm always looking to buy one of those 2. I think they're just incredible. But you probably missed your buy low window on Chase there, with the injuries and everything like that. But like Jason, I think the whole reason they avoided putting him on IR is because he has to miss a minimum of 4 games, not 4 weeks. And that's why they ended up doing it that way. But it might have worked out to their benefit. We'll see how good he looks when he comes back off that injury. Hopefully they're not rushing him back too much. But yeah. So before we get into a couple more topics here, we do have our first question of the night. So it looks like Megan is saying, all right, boys, who's getting the most carries tonight on both sides? So let's just go ahead and do a little bit diving into that. So, Jay, why don't you go ahead and list both of yours on both sides of the ball tonight?
I think we're honestly into this a little bit later on with our Chrome Dome picks of the night. But I will go ahead. It's pretty easy for me. As far as now, I'm assuming Megan is asking for most carries, not necessarily most yards. So most carries, I'm going to say Foreman, of course, for Carolina.
Yep, I agree.
And it could very well be Algiers getting the most carries for Atlanta. But I want to say, and I believe that Patterson's going to end up with the most yards, no matter who gets most carries. You can give Algiers 10 carries, and Patterson will break one of them.
Right. Brian, what's your thoughts on that tonight?
Well, Megan, I'm actually going with Algier and Foreman. And she's actually the one, if it's the same Megan from a couple of weeks, she actually started the Chrome Dome special of the week. So I'm excited for her to have her back.
Yes.
All right, and I'll just wrap it up. Oh, good.
This is the Megan that Megan asked us a couple props, and after the show that night, Megan, we decided we would have this Chrome Dome prop of the night, and you are the creator of that. Even though we have it on our show sheet now, we've done it for. Actually, turned out good because, just for instance, I don't know if you back at yours, but mine last week I was 3 for 5 on mine. The only 2 I lost was Damian Pierce. I went under on 81.5. He of course went over, and then the other was Philly by 13. Philly wins by 12. So, I mean, I did pretty good on the props. I don't know how you did, Brian. I didn't really pay attention to yours. Of course, I really don't care how much money you lost. I only cared how much I did.
I can tell you right here, Megan, if the one thing that, and not to sound like a prude or anything, but I always gamble what you can gamble. So my thought process is I've won nothing, I lost nothing.
And just to wrap it up there, I'm going to go Foreman and I'm going to go Patterson for most carries on both sides. So that's what I'm doing for that. Thanks for the inspiration on this whole segment. It's been a pretty big success for us. So she's saying right here she feels honored. So we're glad you do. Let's go ahead and get a couple more news notes from this past weekend. So Justin Fields, all right, has arrived. It's about time. He looks amazing out there. I'm really pumped for the future. He was 17 to 28 for 123 yards, which, yeah, the yards weren't there, but he set the rushing record with 178 rushing yards. All right, so 4 total touchdowns this past week. He's got some juicy matchups coming up. He's got Detroit this week, who I think is going to be he's going to be a smash play, potential quarterback 1 on the weekend. So, Brian, I'll just kick it down to you. Switch it up a little bit. What are your thoughts on the best quarterback in the league, Justin Fields?
Oh, I'm excited for Justin Fields. I will say this. I'm in one league, and it's actually my league of record, that completions matter. So basically, 0 to 17, you don't really get a lot of points, but anything 17 and more, you get traditionally more. You get more points as you go along. And the same thing with yardage. So, but that being said, even not really dominating that stat, over the last 3 weeks, he's been in top 5 even in that league. So that just tells you how much his rushing stats have really meant. So,
oh yeah, I mean we've seen across the last couple of seasons. I mean rushing yards are king. Especially, when it comes to a quarterback there, just getting those rushing yards are so valuable. That's why a lot of these guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they're constantly being propped up. I will admit, I do know Justin Fields is not the best quarterback in the league, but this is the best quarterback play I've seen in quite a long time in Chicago, so I'm going to keep riding this high, and I'm going to be super annoying until he starts doing bad, just so everyone knows and we're all on the same page. But, Jay,
he's not the best quarterback in the NFL. That being said, he's quickly becoming the top quarterback both in this year's class and last year's class.
Right. If he keeps this up, he's going to be one of the best fantasy quarterbacks. So we have a lot of those type of guys that maybe aren't the best quarterbacks in real life, but they are. I think he's been let down a lot by his receivers to where his stats, I think, would be a little bit better. I think that's why we made the move for Claypool, all that type of good stuff. But, Jay, I'll kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on the man, JF1?
Let me ask you this first, because I don't follow the coaching staff very, very much over there in Chicago. Who is the head coach and the offensive coordinator there in Chicago?
So the head coach is Matt Eberflus. He was the defensive coordinator for the Colts last season. And then our offensive coordinator is Luke Getsy. He was the passing game coordinator for the Packers last year.
Okay, so the reason I asked that question is it was Eberflus that the comment was made on. I was watching a show, and Eberflus was they were talking about Eberflus and what he's done over the last 3 to 5 weeks with Fields is realized, okay, he's not the best passer, but he sat him down and said, okay, watch these videos. It was Jalen Hurts. It was, Josh Allen. It was Kyler Murray last year. He watched these videos of running the ball, the quarterback actually running the ball. And one of them was like, well, he didn't, Ohio State, they basically did not want him to run the ball. So that was drilled in his mindset of do not run the ball, run the passing game from the pocket. Now, I will tell you this. The other video I watched, it broke down that 61-yard rushing play, right? That was not a rushing play. That was not a
Right.
play to rush. That was actually a mesh route. And as soon as he stepped up in the pocket, because the pocket opened, so he went to step up, and Mooney saw him step up and thought, oh, God, he's scrambling. He went on a scramble drill. Right as you see Justin raise up to throw to him, Mooney's got his back to him, and he's like, well, shit, I ain't got no choice. I got to run. And then the Dolphins defenders were completely outspaced. So he had nothing but room to run. Props to him for doing it. Props to the coaching staff for going, hey, Justin, let's run the ball a little bit more. They're calling design plays to get him out of the pocket and allowing him his skill and his ability to actually do what it's supposed to be doing on the field. You know, Jalen Hurts has slowed down his running. Lamar Jackson slowed down his running. They probably will have to slow down his running, but this was the step that they needed to make to see Justin Fields can actually be an NFL quarterback. Now let's go get, and probably overspend a little bit, but let's go get Claypool. Give him a weapon. Give him now 2 weapons with Mooney. You know, now you got Komet. Now, all of a sudden, Komet's a thing. We're all high on Komet to begin the year, and now he's actually producing over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns last 2 weeks.
If they can build that offensive line, get him a little bit more production, probably another running back, because I mean we all believe that Montgomery's out, you know. But hell, they got Herbert back there. But if they can keep both of them and add an offensive line, man, I tell you what, Justin Fields looks like QB1 in 23. Now, stop. Don't. Hey, that screen is getting really. Is the screen getting smaller?
Oh, my head's getting bigger, man. All right. This is, like I said, this is one of the best stretch of games I've been so pumped to see a quarterback play. You know, I've been saddled with Cutler and every other terrible quarterback. I mean, Cutler wasn't terrible, but everyone else below him has been terrible. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. You know, I think, like what you said, they finally realized how to use him properly. They took that mini bye week coming off the Thursday night game and really changed their offense, put a lot more quarterback runs in, stuff like that, which this is what they should have been doing from the beginning. This is what I was mad about all the first 5-6 weeks of the season, was because they kept saying, okay, we're going to build this offense around Justin, highlight all his attributes, make the offense totally accustomed to him, and then they didn't do it. They were still trying to make him drop back 7 steps, pass, and we don't have the offensive line for that. I mean, it's clear we don't have the time to be doing that. So I'm glad they're starting to figure things out, but I will contain my homerism for the next little bit and move on to the next topic. Thank you all for appeasing me. So let's move on to Joe Mixon with the second best performance from a fantasy running back of all time last week. 5 touchdowns. So I kicked it to Brian first. Jay, let's kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on Mixon's performance, who actually it took him from, I think, running back 17 to running back 2 on the season just in that one game. So, I mean, he really projected, went off there. So what are your thoughts on that performance?
Let's simmer down on it. Let's simmer down. It was against Carolina, first of all. That's number 1. Number 2, he didn't throw a touchdown. So he is not CMC. There's why. No, I mean, honestly, this is the breakout game. You know, this style of game, and not necessarily 5 touchdowns. I mean, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns would have been a breakout game, compared to what he's done all year long. But this was the hype for Mixon coming off of last season. It's taken the Carolina defense and 8 weeks, 9 weeks to get to this point. So, I mean, I'm not going to overreact to it because, I mean, here's the funny thing is CMC did what CMC did and then went on a bye week. Mixon's doing what Mixon did, and he goes on a bye week. Let's see what he does in next week when he comes back after, all this praise. Now's the time to sell him if you want to sell him. But, I mean, I'm not going to overreact to one game. He's not been consistent all year.
Right. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jay. Mixon, unbelievable game. Obviously, presumably, the number 1 running back game of all time was Alvin Kamara. Well, the difference between Kamara and Mixon, Kamara had other games leading up to it. Mixon, yeah, he's a top 10 back, but he's not number 2. And, the Bengals, when they get all the receivers healthy, they're predominantly a passing team. And the game script got out of hand last week because Carolina couldn't move the ball against the Bengals defense. They had like less than 50 yards in the first half or something. So the game script, Mixon, give him his credit. He's a good running back, but he's not going to have 5 touchdowns next week. I can pretty much guarantee. So,
right. He's going from the second most running points from a running back of all time to being on bye this week and putting up a nice little 0, So pretty, but yeah, I'm in the same boat. I had him in my Dynasty league and I traded him away in a couple different spots. It's hard to replicate what he did last year. He had 16 touchdowns, so that was one reason I already thought he was going to regress. He kind of made up some ground on that whole regression assessment, putting up 5 last week. But yeah, I think it was just, perfect opponent to go against. They're really trying to not pass the ball as much with Chase being out and the offensive line being banged up. But yeah, still a good performance. But yeah, great time to sell high, especially if you're in a rebuild mode, anything like that. So I would be doing that if I was in those shoes. Did any of you guys face him last week in any of your leagues?
Oh, thank goodness, no.
Yes, and I lost.
Oh man, I was lucky on that one. Yeah, it seems like Brian was as well. We didn't do that, but oof.
By 7. I lost by 7, and he put up 58, 59 points. So if he'd have just stayed his normal course, I'd have been
right.
In the offseason, I traded Mixon for Chubb, is what I.
Oh, nice.
Like that.
Yeah, I traded him for Jacobs and Bateman. But so it sounds like we both did pretty well on that front. Jacobs has definitely been the better back, and then what was that? Sorry, you cut out there, Brian.
Jacobs has had a good year so far, so
yeah, definitely.
He's with Bateman, that'll be back next year. So
yeah, he's kind of been one of my biggest misses this year. I was really high on Bateman, thought he was going to be top 15 type wide receiver this year, so definitely eating that one. Even before ruling out the injury, he was doing okay, but he wasn't doing exactly what I kind of thought he was doing there.
Two little passing offense going on in Baltimore. So.
Right.
Not his fault.
So next topic here, OBJ, getting real close to coming back. Where do we think he's going to land? It sounds like he's got 4 that I think he's mentioned himself and where he would like to go. Some teams that could use him, I know the Cowboys, Micah Parsons has been really trying to go after him, tweeting him all the time, stuff like that. So, Brian, where do you think OBJ is going to end up?
I would be okay with the Cowboys, like you just mentioned. I've heard the 49ers. I'm not sure he's going there. I'm trying to think who else I've heard. But the team I really don't want him to go to for fantasy purposes is, please, for God's sake, don't go to the Rams.
Right.
They're all.
Then, they haven't been good. Stafford's questionable still for this week. I think he's in the concussion protocol and he's still battling his elbow. But that team is still not the team they were last year. That division, the Seahawks are leading right now. The 49ers look stacked right now. So probably going to be tough for them to even come out of that division, to be honest with you. And Cam Akers took number 3, so OBJ can't be number 3 there in the Rams anymore, even though Akers is reluctantly still there by the team. Apparently they were trying to trade him and couldn't find anybody. But, Jake, what are your thoughts on the OBJ situation, where he ends up?
Yeah, the 4 teams that I've heard are, of course, Dallas and Buffalo, the Rams, and Green Bay. Well, he also wants to win. So the Rams and Green Bay are out to me. And
I agree with that.
I'm going to throw a team at you, and I know this may be a little bit of bias on myself, but I think it'll make sense if the Bucs win this weekend in Germany. If the Bucs win this weekend and somehow Carolina wins tonight, that puts the Bucs in first place. Now, that being said, in real life football, he's not going to stay in Tampa after this year. So he would almost have to take a veteran's minimum, which he did last year. Don't know if he would do it again this year. If he wants to ring, he may have to. But the one team that I know he's not going to, and I saw a meme earlier on Twitter with Aaron Rodgers was crying. because he's not going to Green Bay.
No.
So to me, there's only two real fits, and that's Dallas and it's Tampa. But Tampa's got to win this weekend in order for that to even be a real fit. I don't think Buffalo's a real fit, and the reason I don't is because of all the wide receivers they have. Again, he could go to Buffalo, but again, he's probably going to do it at the veterans minimum, and I just don't know that he wants to do that unless he just wants the ring. If he's just chasing the ring, man, go to Philly. Go to Dallas. Go to San Francisco if that's all it is. But I think he actually wants a ring, and he wants to move. He wants out of L.A. Now, if he wants to go to L.A., I'm sure he can wear the 3. I'm sure there will be a stipulation with the coaching staff and the ownership over there at LA going, I'm sorry, Akers, you're not even on the field.
Yeah.
All I can say.
Like Dallas.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, I like Dallas as a landing spot for him.
All I can say is if you're in redraft and have an available roster spot, go ahead and pick him up. I've had him on my Scott Fishbowl. He was my 22nd and final draft pick, and I've held him the entire year in lieu of a kicker. So,
well, there you go. Yeah, I kind of think the Cowboys make a lot of sense. I think actually a team I would like to see him go to would be the Vikings. I don't think it would actually. I haven't heard them like attached to him, anything like that. But Thielen's not really the same guy he was. But with them just adding Hawkinson, if you still have Thielen out there along with Jefferson, Cook in the back, and then you add OBJ into that would be disgusting. They need to be going all in right now. Kirk's very old. That team, they're 7-1. They're running away with the NFC North. I think that would be a really power move for them. I know they're really tight against the cap, but you could get some players out of there. They have what was the Eagles player that went there? Rager. You know what I mean? Just cut him, move OBJ in. There you go. Boom. He freed up some roster space and a better player. But, yeah, so I haven't heard them being linked to him by any means, but I think that'd be a good fit. But speaking, I know we just kind of briefly discussed the Bills. This actually isn't on our show sheet, but Josh Allen battling a UCL injury, which is usually typically a pitching injury. It's a Tommy John injury that pitchers usually get. So that's really bad. I mean, hopefully, I think they're going to be – he's a game-time decision, I think, this week is what he's trending for. He's not going to practice. He's going to see what he can get through. But, man, if he can't work through that, that's really going to hurt that team, especially if he's going to be out for weeks. I think Case Keenum's the backup there right now, which, going from Josh Allen to Case Keenum is never good. He might be able to keep you afloat for a game or two, but I really hope that he's not injured for a long term. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on the UCL injury that Josh Allen's battling at the moment?
Yeah, like you said, I keep up with the injury news quite a bit, and he's missed yesterday and today's practice, and they've said he can play without practicing, and that's okay. But I'm hoping they're an early game. I don't know off the top of my head, but Keenum's manageable. Let's face it. There's so many bad NFL quarterbacks that are second string on their team. I would be okay. It's not good, but I would be okay if I had to start Case Keenum. He's at least a veteran and has a decent arm, so I could do worse in Case Keenum.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think he can keep you afloat, but it's a really bad matchup for them this week going against the 7-1 Vikings. So it's tough. They really need Josh Allen out there. Could end up being a Case Keenum revenge game. Who knows? We'll see. But Jay, what are your thoughts on the UCL injury here?
Well, so I'm gonna plug our Discord right quick because it's free, and we need to get over there and get y'all in that as well if you're not already in it. However, I need to talk to Doc about this because I was talking to a couple people who have had the UCL injury before, and usually that quite requires for baseball, it requires Tommy John surgery, right? And we all know if you follow baseball at all, that's usually like almost a year, 9 months to a year, you're out. But throwing a football
before you're even throwing again, yeah,
right. But throwing a football is a little bit different from the baseball, so it's more of a pain tolerance thing. And from my understanding is if you've ever hit your funny bone, basically that's what the UCL and the nerves are all connected right there. So when you feel that tingling in your hand, he's basically feeling that tingling the whole time from what I understand. So gripping the football, throwing it down, it's a pain tolerance thing from what I'm hearing. I'm not a doctor. Haven't stayed on a holiday any time recently, so I can't be accused of it. Now, I will tell you this: with him not practicing, if he's out, Naheem Hines is the reason to watch Buffalo. Go pick up Naheem Hines if you don't have him already. It's going to become a huge rushing game. You'll see Singletary in there, but you'll see Naheem Hines taking a load, in my opinion. So it's something to keep an eye on. But it's definitely, I think it's more of a pain tolerance. I'm going to ask Doc about that, and I want him to actually jump in the Discord and let us all know if that's truly the case, if there's a difference from throwing a baseball to a football when it comes to that injury.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, I mean, could be impact. It could be really, tossing that division up for grabs with possibly the Jets and the Dolphins being right there with them. So, any games that he missed, they really don't have a big cushion to be, starting Case Keenum instead of him. So, before we get into the games, everything like that, I got one last thing to talk about here. So that's Hawkinson's debut with Minnesota. I think he kind of blew us all out of the water here on our expectations. He went 9 for 9, 70 yards. Really looked good with Kirk Cousins. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Hawkinson and Minnesota and his rest of the season outlook here?
I personally think they put him in the right spot. They've already had so much talent on offense with Cook and Jefferson. Like you said, Thielen not doing as well. So he's probably going to take some of Thielen's targets away from him, especially in the red zone. So I like it as the rest of the season. It would not shock me at all, especially with Darren Waller going on injury reserve today, for him to finish as a top 5 the rest of the season for Hawkinson.
I agree. Jay, what are your thoughts on Hawkinson?
Yeah, so I saw a thing the other day, and it really was kind of surprising. So kind of like what we talked about with Nix, he's had this kind of season all year, and then he got right against a bad defense in Carolina. Well, the trade happened at the perfect time for Hawkinson. And the reason I say that is Detroit with Hawkinson had already played Washington. So he already knew what Washington was doing. He already knew the scouting report against Washington. That gave him extra time to learn Minnesota's offense. So that was perfect for him. And I think all that did was, again, give him more time to learn Minnesota's offense last week, but then again, do it this week as well. So I think, like Brian said, and it's tight end, so it's not hard to be a top 5 each week. But Hawk could be a top 5, top 6, top 7 every week going forward and jump up to end of season being a top 5 tight end for fantasy purposes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he looks great. Like you said, it's not hard to be a top 3 tight end, especially with Andrews being banged up. Waller actually was put on IR today. We haven't really talked about that. So, yeah, the tight end landscape, it's not hard to be a top performer in that one, but really looked good for being, what I thought was going to be a kind of a limited, dip his toe in the water type performance, but they really chucked him in the deep end on that one. So, yeah, I like him going forward. 70 yards, first game in, 9 catches. It's really hard to beat that, especially in a PPR league. So, all right, guys, one last thing. Let's go over this real quick. We're 1 week over the halfway mark, 18 weeks, seasons now, including the bye week. So we're just over halfway. Jay, we're going to start with you. Who is your MVP at the halfway mark? If you want to do NFL season and fantasy or however you want to do it, but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to do NFL season. Just make it simple because it's Tua Tagovailoa for me. And the reason is when he starts and finishes a game, Miami is 6-0. And that's pretty daggone dominant. He's pushing the ball downfield like everybody's thought he couldn't do at some point, but then he gets Tyreek Hill, and we all saw the underthrow, in the wind or whatever. But I mean, this year alone, he's 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's it, and he's pushing 1,980 yards already. Dude's going to be a 4,000-yard passer, somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 touchdowns. And what? Even if he goes halfway, 6 picks. And that's an Aaron Rodgers type season, right? And we all put Aaron Rodgers in, he's defending MVP. What, back-to-back MVP. Tua was doing the exact same stats. Tua is the MVP, especially with what he's got.
Yeah, I like that. It definitely has a case for it. Brian, what's your thoughts on the halfway mark MVP so far?
Well, no disrespect to Jay here. I'm going same position, but I think there's only one undefeated team in the NFL. I'm going Jalen Hurts, real life, fantasy, period. One thing about fantasy is you could draft him with a pretty low ADP, even in super flex leagues, probably 3rd or 4th round. And like I said, there's only one undefeated team. And honestly, looking at their schedule, it's not. I think it's a while before they lose a game. I'm not sure I see one before week 14, 15.
Dallas.
Yeah, but aren't they week 15?
That's what I'm asking. I'm not looking at the schedule. When you say that, I'm like, okay, it's Dallas.
Yeah, it's Dallas. The only one that makes sense to me. And I think that's week 15. So it would be, no disrespect to Tua, but they're 6-3. Like I said, they're undefeated with Tua in the lineup. But still, Hurts has been in the lineup every single game. So it's Hurts for me.
No, and I 100% agree with that. Except for the fact of next year, you're not getting him in the 4th round. You're not going to do it. He continues what he's doing now.
Of course, you're not going to get Tua as low either, but
right.
You're not going to get Hurts that low. If you did a super flex dynasty, he'd be a 1st-round pick right now for sure.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this way. So in Scott Fishbowl, I drafted the 101. So of course I took Josh Allen, and it is super flex. So I didn't have Jalen Hurts went later. Tua went early 2nd round. There was talk that Jalen Hurts, in our group, that Jalen Hurts should have gone 101. And this was prior to the season start, right? And I was like, yeah, I could see the argument, but it's Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Okay, going off of what we've seen this year, could you actually see Scott Fishbowl next year, Jalen Hurts or Tua, or both of them, going ahead of like a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes scenario?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, Jalen Hurts definitely has more of a case, I would say, than Tua. I mean, I think people just, the rushing upside, everything there. But, I mean, I think the top two, they're pretty locked in, or I don't think you're passing on Mahomes or Josh Allen for too many guys. I mean, you could maybe do the flashy upside pick, but for now it's hard. Those two, I think, are pretty cemented as the top two for me.
Yeah, me too. And the thing about Allen, you could name him MVP, but what he's doing was totally expected. And the same with, Mahomes was more of a question mark because of surrounding talent, but what Allen's doing is just what he was expected to do. So,
right. And speaking of that, that's actually my MVP for the season so far is Patrick Mahomes. So leading the league in pass yards and touchdowns. Like you said, there's some players like him, Josh Allen, they're expected to be there every year. But if you look at the last couple of years, I mean, Rodgers won it every single year. He's expected to be up there most years. I know this is a down year for him, but, like you actually said, Brian, him and his surrounding cast, there was a lot of question marks going into the season. I mean, we knew Kelsey was there, but Juju, hasn't really been Juju before the last couple seasons. Mike MBS, not a really inspiring signing there. There was a lot of question marks around his surrounding talent, and I think he's proven to be that it doesn't really matter who the talent is around him. He's just going to be, one of the best quarterbacks out there, and he continues to be. So that's my MVP halfway through the season. I know it's kind of like the easy, low-hanging fruit pick, but I mean, just what he's doing out there, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, pretty tough to beat those numbers.
And like we were talking about just last week, that Kadarius Toney has a real chance to become his wide receiver one. That tells you a lot about his surrounding cast, because Kadarius Toney couldn't even get on the field for the Giants. So
right,
off the field stuff. So
yeah, I was actually I was one of the guys that kept putting Herbert over Mahomes in the preseason ranks just because of those question marks. It actually has worked out really, really badly for me because I ended up taking Herbert in a lot of different redraft stuff like that. But I thought, okay, he has Mike Williams, He's got Keenan Allen. He's got Eckler. He has all these weapons compared to, let's say, if one of those guys gets hurt, he still has others to count on compared to Mahomes. Theoretically, if Kelsey went down, he's throwing the Juju and MVS as his top two targets, and that just really scared me. So I ended up doing Herbert over him, but Mahomes has just proven to be that guy. So
yeah. You can talk all that mess you want to about wide receivers, but just like the Laughing Network said, don't sleep on Juju. Juju is something. He's becoming something with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, for sure. I think
something. And Devin, if you remember, my very first show was with y'all, and I brought up Mecole Hardman. He's not becoming Tyreek Hill, but he's starting to mold into that down the field, running that 9 route, and he's getting he'll catch a ball at 3 yards and take it for 65. He's becoming that player. He's not in the shadow of Tyreek Hill anymore. So, man, watch out for this. I don't know that Kadarius Toney's going to be anything, and I'm a Gator fan, right? So I don't know that he ended up being a damn thing. I thought it was kind of amazing that he got off the airplane after being traded, and he was eagled.
It was the healing waters of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Things happen in KC. It could have been the barbecue sauce. I don't know. but there are things happening in KC, and that wide receiving core is becoming something. I'm not an MVS fan, and I'm not seeing him become anything other than that, 4 or 5 yard dump off. But he's the other side too is I think Juju is sat in meeting rooms with Travis Kelce and go, how do you do it? What do I need to do? How can I make my game like your game, but better?
Right. And he's on a 1-year deal, so he still has a lot to prove, I mean, he's not guaranteed to be there next year. I mean, he's really proven that he's stepped up a lot more than what I thought. I mean, he was truly like a wild card for me. Could have been, wide receiver, anywhere from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 50 for me this year. But I think he's proven, he's a solid option. He's reliable. So, I mean, I feel a lot better about the situation now, but 2 months ago when we were doing all of our drafts, just wasn't convinced, especially if, Kelsey was going to get hurt potentially or anything like that. But, yeah, he looks really good. So, that being said, we've kind of talked a lot about all the news and notes this week, some of these other items. We haven't even talked about the game tonight. So, before we get into that, right, I mean, we're not missing a whole lot from tonight's game, let's be honest. It's another bad matchup. But before we get into that, Underdog Fantasy, promo code the same, GF2, and you get a deposit match up to $100. That's at Underdog Fantasy, so make sure you go check them out. And let's get into this barn burner of a game tonight. Some players that are actually going to be in or out. Chuba Hubbard had an ankle injury. He's missed the last couple of weeks. He is going to be active tonight. So, we had our earlier question. We're asking about who's going to get the most. I think that's where it comes from Megan, just with him actually being active. Still think we all agree it's going to be Foreman. And then Higgins also on Carolina has an illness. He's questionable. I have not seen if he's going to be active, but I haven't seen anyone on Atlanta currently that's been ruled out. So, we got this barn burner of a matchup. Let's go ahead and just actually talk into this game. We had some other topics as far as some other players that were in or out this weekend, but we need to talk about this one a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Brian. Do you think weather is going to be a factor in tonight's game? I know you already hinted at that earlier, that Carolina looked like it had some rain coming. So what are your thoughts on the conditions for tonight?
If either one of the teams were passing teams, because I would say yes. But since both quarterbacks are below average, I'm going to say no.
Well, it looks like we might have lost Brian there.
No, I wanted him to stop because I wrote this down today. We need to do a drinking game tonight for one reason and one reason only. Not on this show, but during the broadcast, right? We take a drink every time weather is set. Right? Thing. I'm in South Georgia, and we're getting the weather right now. Right, so we've had it all day since about 7:00 this morning, and it's been raining, it's been windy, mean, sometimes it's gusting pretty hard. The reports coming out where this game could be sustained winds at 25 miles an hour with gusts up to 35 to 50. I don't see that happening. I don't think it matters in this game, to be quite honest. These teams are running teams. So I don't worry about the weather. I asked the question because I wanted to see what Brian's thought were. I mean, I know Brian's up in Tennessee-ish, right, Brian? Okay.
That's right. Yeah, Nashville.
What is your weather like now in Nashville? You're not getting
We've got nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of, I would say we're probably the same distance, roughly wise, to Charlotte. But I'm getting the weather. I don't think the weather's going to hit till later, maybe the fourth quarter. So I don't think the weather is going to be a factor at all.
Yeah, even if so, I mean, like you said, both these teams are running teams. It's not like they're really airing it out. I mean, Marcus Mariota has single-handedly tanked Pitts and London all on its own. So, we'll be lucky to even see too many passes here tonight anyway, just between both of these teams. Go ahead.
My favorite parlay, I haven't seen it available, plus over or under 300 total yards passing between the two quarterbacks.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that.
There won't be two quarterbacks. There'll be at least three. Because I have a feeling that P.J. Walker is going to throw an interception, and Baker Mayfield will then come in.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked they stuck with P.J. this week. I mean, Baker come in, he looked pretty good. I mean, I know, they have a larger sample size from earlier in the season, but P.J. looked terrible last week.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm kind of going to switch up our format here. We haven't talked a lot about this game. I know there's not a whole lot of news and notes to talk about, but let's go ahead and jump to what our predictions are for tonight's game before we get into stock up, stock down. So I'll go ahead and give mine. I have Atlanta winning 21-20. Brian, what is your prediction for tonight's game?
Very similar. Atlanta 24-21.
And Jason, what do you got?
Yeah, unfortunately, as a Bucs fan, this hurts, but I went to Atlanta 24-17.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential here to have some decent points. We're all in the 20s. We all took the Falcons. Just not a great matchup. I mean, the Panthers just look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. They don't have a lot of talent anywhere on that team. They have some good key pieces, but, yeah, they just don't have any good quarterback play, anything like that going on. So, all right, so, guys, we're wrapping up here. Let's go ahead and get into everyone's favorite segment, stock up, stock down. I'm actually going to toss this one over to Jason to give your first stock up of the week.
Yeah. My stock up this week, Cole Kmet. And I know why you sent it to me first, being your little homering. You're homering. I mean, the last 2 weeks, he was tight end 14 2 weeks ago. Last week, he was tight end 2 on this, on the week. So, I mean, the Bears, like I said earlier about Justin Fields, they're slowly opening up the play calling. They're starting to find the receivers. They've gotten Claypool in there now, so got a week with them. I mean, man, Cole Kmet, what we thought Cole Kmet could be, he still can be. It's just taking a little bit. So, man, give me Cole Kmet, stock up all the way to the moon.
I'm really hoping. I've gotten really close. I took the over on 5 touchdowns for him this season, and it was looking really bad for a couple of weeks or most of the season. And he's at 3 in the last 2 weeks, so I'm feeling a lot better about that bet. So we'll see how that ends up panning out. But yeah, I agree. I like Cole Kmet. Definitely stock up has been definitely more involved, and they're kind of doing the Kansas City Ravens thing, where when they need a yard, they're not trying to hurt their quarterback. They do the slick little tight end in motion, get under the center, and a 6'6", 250-pound man getting that rushing yard. So
I'm not going to try to bust your bubble anymore or blow up your head any more than I already have tonight. At 5 TDs, does that include a possible playoff too?
I don't think so. I think it was a regular season.
I mean, if they're going to keep playing like they're playing, they could sneak into that wild card.
Oh, man. Come on. Don't do that to me.
They said there's a lot of water in Carolina, but must be a lot in Tennessee right now.
All right, Laughing Man Network on YouTube here says my only issue with Komet is his points off 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks, and Claypool's in town. They are going to leech off each other. I like having him on the low though. So yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, overall, it's still not going to be a really big passing volume offense. I mean, Justin Fields, like I said last week, 123 yards. So it's not like they're carving everybody up. But the potential is there. They're both going to be very good red zone targets. Both big bodies, everything like that. So the potential is always going to be there. Even if he's not getting yards every week, he's going to be one of the top options to get at least a touchdown, hopefully.
Right. You don't need Komet to catch 7 balls for 100 yards. You need Komet 2 for 10 with a touchdown. That's what you need.
Right.
Especially in this tight end landscape that we're sitting in right now.
Right. Especially in the tight end premium. You know what I mean? 2 catches on that's already pretty solid. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like that. So, Brian, let's kick it down to you. Who is your stock up for Week 10?
Well, you've already mentioned Justin Herbert. He's still a pretty darn good quarterback. So my stock up, Josh Palmer. And I graduated from Vanderbilt, so him being a Tennessee graduate, that's hard to say, but he's been pretty good. Mike Williams is still out. Keenan Allen's still missing practice. Last week, Palmer had 8 catches for 106 yards. And in 4 out of the last 7 games, he scored at least 13 PPR fantasy points. So he's my stock up.
Yeah, he's a solid receiver. He's stepped up admirably. They've had some really bad injuries on that team. Keenan Allen just cannot get over his hamstring injury. We joked about it the other week that, Brian Robinson literally got shot and came back before Keenan Allen did with his hamstring injury. So it's just been nagging him all season. He's definitely been stocking up. So that's good for him on that one. So another comment here, Laughing Man Network said, referring back to Komet, buy the shit out of him. Agree with that as well. He's pretty cheap. You might be having a harder time buying him as cheap now the last couple of weeks. People are definitely probably going to be selling high. But he says he does think the future is real nice for him as well. So appreciate the comment. I agree as a Bears fan and as the podcast host at the moment. So thank you for that. I will say actually as well, so my stock up for the week is Jeff Wilson. So, he got traded, pretty late in the week actually to the Dolphins. And, Mostert has been having some really solid weeks. He's really carving some people up. I know Jeff Wilson is familiar with this offense, given that Mike McDaniels came from the 49ers. But I still didn't think he was going to be as involved as he is. And he ended up playing 49% of the snaps. So basically 50-50 right off the bat with limited time to learn the playbook, everything like that, which, like I said, came from San Fran, knows probably most of the plays, different terminology to learn, stuff like that. But on 9 rushes, he had 51 yards and 3 targets, 3 catches for 21 yards and a touchdown. So very heavily involved. He's got pretty good matchups coming up. He's got Cleveland this week. Then they have a bye week, but then Houston the following week. So, if you're needing some, decent RB2 numbers, I think he's a lock solid RB2 going forward. Like I said, I wasn't expecting him to be 49% of the plays. So, Brian, what did you think? Do you think he was going to be playing that much of the snaps?
I really didn't, but I'd also forgotten who his head coach was when he got traded. And, I think a key component here is Chase Edmonds also got traded.
Right. So, Jay, what do you think about Jeff Wilson there?
Man, I love that. That was probably the best landing spot for him.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I if I was Raheem Mostert, I'd be looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
As close friends as they are, or it seems to be, because Mostert, when Wilson caught that touchdown, Mostert was the first one to jump up, meet him on the field, high fives, whatever. Man, you better look over your shoulder, because you might have to look over your shoulder for Chase, but you need to look over your shoulder at your boy. He came in there thinking, okay, I might have a chance. I didn't have a chance with CMC being the lead back. I had a chance against Mostert. He's going to get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, like you said, it was a perfect landing spot for him. I really liked it there. I guess I should have factored in more that, he knows the system, so he might have been, thrown into a higher volume compared to most other players, but still was pretty shocking just to see that. I just was not expecting that.
I will say this, though. I think with both Wilson and Mostert being a little bit older, a little bit grayer, that there's a role for both of them, to be honest with you, as long as they can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think they're primed to be one of the teams that maybe, back into the first round, maybe trade back into the second, or even stay at the first and the back end, depending where they finish, and maybe take like a Bijan or someone like that this upcoming season, because they don't really have a whole lot of needs on that team. So.
Who is the RB3 there in Miami?
What's that?
Who's the third running back besides Mostert and Wilson?
What is it? Oh shoot!
I'm not sure.
Yes, I mean none of us seem to know the answer, which tells you there's not much there. So.
Not only that, but I think Mostert and Wilson are both final year of their contract as well.
I believe that's correct. Yeah,
but I don't believe that Miami has a first right now. I think they said the first that they had that they got for Hill, or I'm sorry, who they get it for from who the hell they get it from? But I think they sent that to Denver.
You're right.
So I don't think they have a first this year.
Yeah, at one point they had three firsts this year. Then they had the one taken away from the scandal with Tom Brady. They traded this one, and then so they
Tyreek Hill, I believe they
got
as well. So I don't think they have a first.
Oh yeah, you're actually right. So maybe they won't. We'll see what happens with that. But Gaskin, that's the guy we were thinking of. That's who. Thank you, Laughing Man Network, helping us out there. It was right on the tip of my tongue, but I do want to real quick before we go into stock down. He brings up a really good point here. He says, I do want to say, sell your Bears. They have a bye week 14, then Buffalo, then Philly. That's they have a terrible, the next couple of weeks, not bad. So you could maybe entice someone with the Lions this weekend, Houston coming up. But this is the time of the year where Dynasty, redraft, everything. You need to start looking at some of these matchups and seeing what you got going on. Some bye week or some playoffs actually start week 14. So, having those bye weeks that late, something to factor in, especially because that is a pretty big bye week too. I think there's multiple teams on bye that week. 6 teams
are on bye. Week 14.
Right.
Or Scott Fish starts in week 12.
Yeah. So, lots of good information there from Laughing Man Network. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to go ahead and go ahead.
The only thing I'll disagree with is I wouldn't say sell your Bears unless you're in draft.
Agreed.
In Dynasty, you should have a deep enough roster that you can see, a Justin Fields, a David Montgomery, a Chase Claypool, a Cole Kmet for that 1 week and not get the break speed off of you.
100%. That's we are a Dynasty podcast, so we do need to be looking at things through the Dynasty lens here. So I do agree with that as well. That goes just for anybody, not just Bears, but you're not going to sacrifice your Dynasty, some of your core players just because you have one bad week or one bad matchup from 1 year. So definitely agree with you, Jay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick off stock down because I actually kind of have multiple players that I'm saying is a stock down, and that's every single running back on Kansas City. All right. Patrick Mahomes led the team with 6 attempts. All right. That's terrible for a running back. They threw the ball, I think, 67 times. So, we know they're a pass-first team anyway. But when your quarterback, when they're not designed runs, he's obviously scrambling, for some of these rushes. But Mahomes should never lead the team in rush yards. So Mahomes did pretty well with those scrambled rush yards. 6 rushes for 63 yards. CEH only had 4 attempts for 5 yards. Pacheco had 5 attempts for 5 yards. McKinnon had 3 attempts for 4, and the fullback Burton even had 1 for 0. So, to me, you can't trust anyone in this backfield right now. Kansas City, you want to avoid at all means. Doesn't matter who starts the game, anything like that. They're just not getting the opportunities. They're going to be lucky to give you running back 2 numbers. So I'm very against every running back in Kansas City right now. Stock way down for every single one of them.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you too much, except that I did see where Eric Bieniemy come out either yesterday or today right after practice and said, we have to get the running game going. If that means we got to give Clyde and Isaiah 20 touches a game, we have to do it. So as of right now, absolutely 100% stock down. But they could go right back up in 2 weeks.
That's true. That's the beauty of this segment. 1 week you're down, 1 week you're up. So, so Brian, I'll kick it down.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but it sounded like he wasn't that far short of 20 total touches in the running back committee last week, was it?
No, he's saying
it didn't do squat.
He was saying 20 each.
20 touches for one running back?
Each. They got to get the running game going. He's saying 20 each. So, I mean, you take Mahomes out of 6, split those up, you're still looking at, if you're going 15 touches for Clyde, 15 touches for Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, that's 30 touches right there. They're still going to throw the ball 40 more times.
Yeah, they're going to have a heck of a lot of plays. I got some oceanfront property in Arizona I'll sell you as well.
Yeah, so I'd like to see this happen before I actually buy into it too much here. But
they won't throw it 70 times. I'll admit to that, but I don't think.
I hate when he does that.
right at the top of it, and then there he goes. I will say
he makes a great point, and then turns right around and goes,
Right. I will say there he is. I will say that they are going to have some fresh legs if they're only rushing 5 times a week. So playoffs are coming up. We always know running game is king in the playoffs. Whoever can run the ball controls the ball, everything like that. So maybe they will have some fresh legs, but for fantasy dynasty purposes right now, it's really hard to have them in your flex spot, let alone as an actual starting running back. So Brian, we'll go ahead and kick it down to you. Who is your stock down for this week?
I'm going to preface this. We've had a lot of Chicago Bear love.
Yes, we have. It's been amazing.
Bear, but almost did. So Bear down, Chicago Bears. But David Montgomery was going to be my pick, and I thought we've had so much positive vibe. I'll just put Michael. I had to choose somebody, and over the last 3 weeks, he's got a total of 133 yards. And I'm sorry, each one of us three could be a better professional quarterback than Sam Ellinger. So I'm going to say Pittman way down. Matt Ryan may be 37 years old, but I'd rather him be behind center. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's really torpedoed Pittman's fantasy outlook. Like I said, he's another one that's just like it's hard to roll out there in an actual wide receiver spot. I mean, I know you drafted him high if you have him in Dynasty. You were real high, especially after week 1. Came out with like 13 catches and all that, was looking amazing. And now how far everything has fallen is pretty rough. Jay, you have any thoughts on Michael Pittman before we get your stock down? And actually, before we get that, Kyle says hi. I just want to get that in there. The man, Kyle Sendra, hello. Thanks for joining in. And back to you, Jay.
Yeah, so the only thing I'll say about that is there was a report that came out today that, maybe it's just the water in like the Midwest, because Kansas City, Tony's 100% healthy when he lands off the plane. Hey, guess who's practicing today? Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan might be starting next week. And now, it's the Sam Ellinger experience. It didn't just hurt Pittman. It didn't just hurt, Pierce. It hurt JT as well. And then when I say hurt JT, I mean it hurt his ankle.
Literally.
So, hey, get Matt Ryan back in there. Hey, look, he's got a noodle arm, whatever. At least he can throw the ball. At least he knows an offense. At least he knows how to read a defense kind of thing. No, they're not going anywhere. But get Ellinger out of there. He sucks. He sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks in fantasy.
The sad thing about Ryan is they actually set him because of the number of sacks and picks he had. Well, Ellinger may not get as many sacks as he can run a little, but you're destined for at least as many picks. So
at least you still have the ball. Get a sack.
And not to mention there, I mean, we haven't even talked about this, but they just got a brand new head coach. I mean, I know it's interim, but Jeff Saturday taking over there, that was a pretty crazy storyline.
Saturday.
So it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's a terrible position to any interim coach to be in just because, I mean, they already know an offense. You can't really install what you want to do mid-season. So, I mean, Colts just outlook overall is probably stock down as well, not just Pittman. But Jay, I'll kick it back to you. I'll keep interrupting you and taking your spotlight here. So go ahead with your stock down for the week.
Man, my stock down this week, it probably should be the whole team after the debacle of being up 17-3. But player, and it's Robert Woods. Robert Woods 0 for 2. He got 2 targets. 2. That's all he got last week. 2. And he didn't catch near one of them. Man, if you're in redraft, cut this guy. He's a roster clogger at this point. In the last 3 weeks, he's had 8 total targets, which is not good. He's only got 1 touchdown of the year. He's got 256 yards for the year. For the year. Man, get this guy off your roster. He's horrible at football anymore. He's 74 years old. I mean, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said 74. He's 47. 47. Man, and just he's not getting the ball. They're not a passing offense. They're Derrick Henry as far as Derrick Henry will take them.
Agreed.
And Treylon Burks should be back this week.
Yeah, definitely intrigued on him. Yeah, he's definitely worth a waiver stash for the week as well, I would say, going forward. Just see what happens. I mean, clearly they need someone out there to catch the balls. I know he wasn't lighting the world on fire by any means earlier this season, but, still has some upside. I mean, first-round pick. So I like that. So, all right, well, we're getting closer and closer to kickoff time, so let's go to our brand new segment. Megan, if you're still watching, this was brought on by you. So here we go with the Chrome Dome parlays of the night. So, Chrome Dome, Brian, why don't you go ahead and give us some of yours for tonight?
Shout out to Megan. One of my top ones. I know we've got a homer in Cordero Patterson, and I like him too. But Tyler Algier, 32 yards over. Last week he had 10 carries for 96 yards. So it's not going to shock me if Tyler Algier is your leading rusher tonight. Surprisingly, I'm kind of iffy on Cordero Patterson. He's at 55.5, and he's only beat that number 2 out of 5 games he's played this year. So that's kind of interesting. The other I like Deontay Foreman, 55.5 yards over.
Yeah, I like all those. I think Algier at 32.5 just seems like a gimme, doesn't it?
Seems like a slam dunk to me. Like I said, it would not shock me for him to outproduce my man Cordero Patterson. I've got him at Patterson in a few leagues and Algier in a few as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a predominant rushing game, and I would try to stay away from definitely both quarterbacks. I didn't want either one of those props. And receiving, if I went with one, DJ Moore, 57.5, I think, or 57 over.
Yeah, I like those as well. I think they all make sense to me. So let's kick it over there to Jason. Feel free to comment on any of Brian's picks, and then also give us some of yours for tonight.
Well, see, here's the unfair part: is I set this up and I did I looked at DraftKings. I think that's what Brian looked at as well, right? Okay, so I looked at DraftKings, and this was at 9:00 this morning when I took my picks, and at 9 a.m. Atlanta was only a 2.5 point favorite, but the over/under was 42.5. At 4 p.m., when I looked back, Atlanta was now a 3-point favorite. 44.5 was over/under. Right before we came on the show, I looked again. Atlanta's still a 3-point favorite, but now the spread is 41.5. So it is fluctuated all day on DraftKings. So my numbers are going to be a little bit off of what Brian has because I'm going off the 9 a.m. numbers when I did place my bets. So I got Pitts over under 3.5 receptions. Pitts has done nothing all year long. He's gotten the target, but it's Marcus Mariota throwing, so it's not targets that are actually catchable targets. They're over his head. He still gets a target for it. Anyway, so he's got, I want to say it was 3 games this year where he's actually caught 3 passes. 2 of them he's caught 5 or more. Give me 3.5 over. I think he actually gets targets tonight. They've got to get him involved. They have to. Patterson, the over under 54.5 rushing. I'm taking the over as well there. I think Patterson's going to have a hell of a game. I do think Algiers gets 32.5. I'm with that. Foreman, I went over again. I think, again, this is going to be a rush. Give Kyle Pitts a touchdown kind of a game. Over under what I had was 54.5. Brian, you had it at what, 55.5?
Yeah, from memory, yeah.
Okay. So I would still take the over. It's only another yard. I'd take the over there. The other one that I took is Patterson anytime touchdown. Did y'all see what he did to the Chargers?
Yeah.
9 last week. I mean, he wanted that end zone so bad. He took 49 and put his ass on the ground, let him roll. I think the dude's still in concussion protocol. I think he still thinks he's in Atlanta after being hit by Patterson last week and just bowled him over for that touchdown. Hey, give me Patterson anytime touchdown. Pitts over 3.5. Receiving Patterson over 54.5 and Foreman over 54.5.
Yeah.
If you had to ask me, Patterson, I'd rather go with the anytime touchdown. The yardage is okay, but definitely I would go with the anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I put this in on a $10 bet. I put $100 on it, but I put it in as a $10 bet, and it was a $37 payout.
Wow.
So I put $100 on it. It's almost a $400 payout. So I figured, hey, I've got 2 of them pretty much guaranteed in my mind. I think the rushing and the for Foreman and the anytime touchdown for Patterson is a guarantee. The Pitts receiving is the bet in my mind.
Yeah, I like a lot of those as well. I got a couple here. We'll just get into that right before we got to get going, just because the game's getting ready to kick off. So I got 2 Terrence Marshall over-unders for everybody. So I got Terrence Marshall over-under receptions. That's actually supposed to be reception yards, which is 39.5. So I'm taking the over on that. And then also Terrence Marshall over-under longest reception, 18.5 yards. So I'm taking the over on that as well, just because the last 3 consecutive games, he's had catches of 21, 39, and 20. So, he's not facing the great offense here. He's probably going to be, the second option behind DJ Moore anyway, to where DJ Moore is going to be getting all the coverage. So 18.5 yards, longest reception, 39 yards for total yards. So what do you guys think about those 2?
I love it.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, my only concern is if the wind blows. Oh,
right.
That's it. I see. I didn't say whether. Oh, I did.
All right, well, you guys, that's the show. We need to get wrapping up. Just a couple notes before we do get out of here. Looks like got some comments here. Kyle Senra, loving the new Chrome Dome segment. Shout out. Thanks, Megan, again, for the inspiration. Looks like we got Laughing Man Network here. I did a big Cordero over 7.5 reception and Marshall over 7.5 yards. Reception and Terrence Marshall over 7.5 points. What do you guys think about those?
Yeah, that total for Cordero, I was surprised it was so low, under 8 receiving yards. That
seems very low.
Yeah, that's super low. The one that would scare me there, honestly, it could actually smash on one touchdown. He could get Marshall could get 6 points on one touchdown. Again, we're talking about throwing the ball and in an inept offense right now. I could see that. I think actually that actually might be a great play if Baker ends up in the second half like he was last week. I think that could be a smash play.
All right, and last comment here we have is we'll put your heads together, guys, from Kyle.
We cannot take credit for that. That is Megan. That's all. We can't take credit for that.
Yep. All right. Well, like I said, a couple notes, just let everyone know what our upcoming schedule is. So next week we'll be here as usual. The following week will be Thanksgiving. It's already crazy. It's that time of the year. We are not going to be on the Thanksgiving week. We're going to be spending time with our family. So just enjoy the week with your guys' families. Enjoy all the food, everything like that. But we will be back next week. Just wanted to kind of give everyone a little heads up what's going on. And let's go ahead and do our little round robin here. So, Jay, kick it over to you to let people know what's going on.
Not not too. Oh wait, we're talking about fantasy football here every week, every Thursday night pregame, except for 2 weeks from now. We're gonna take a little hiatus. We're not gonna do bourbon. We're just gonna take a hiatus to enjoy our families. Y'all do the exact same thing. You catch me here every Thursday night. You can catch me Wednesday nights with Dynasty Intervention or Fantasy Intervention rather. You can catch me over in the Discord, please, y'all. It's a free Discord. Jump in there. We love talking to y'all. Y'all love giving us your trades. We love giving you a little bit of advice. You can yell at us for doing it.
Definitely. And Brian, how about you?
Well, you can always find me at VandyGrad92. And along with going for two, I'm also part of For Frequency's Sake. So tomorrow night, Gladys Tyler, the best madame of fantasy football, DFS, she and I will have a podcast called DFS Deep Dive. And then on Sunday, I'm also part of the hour-and-a-half long pregame show for Frequency Network. So I've got a lot going on, and I always post it to VandyGrad92. So please come follow.
Hey, how much did you have to pay Gladys to come and talk to you on Friday nights?
Oh, I'm telling you now, she knows you're the nicest person in the industry. So I'm just a lucky man.
All right. And yeah, you can find me here every week as well. Appreciate everyone tuning in. I've had a lot of questions over here recently, actually, on my Twitter handle at Devin Deal. So appreciate the questions. Love helping everyone out. Like Jay's been saying, get in the Discord. Hit us up there. Keep watching all the great shows we have here on Going for Two Live Network. And if you have any questions, let us know. We love being here for you guys. Try to enjoy this game. I will say the Panthers look absolutely sick in their blackout uniforms tonight. That is one of the coolest looking uniforms I've seen so far in the season. So unfortunately, I don't think they're going to do much with it, but it is a pretty solid looking uniform, I got to say.
Hey, I do want to say this real quick, though, too. If you hate watching Amazon with the game, man, flip down and go to the what is it? I gotta find it now.
What is it? The extra stats or whatever?
Yeah, it is next gen stats. The next gen programming
that's so cool.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Like it puts the players' names out there where you can see where they're lined up. You don't have to be like, oh, is that 18 or is that 16? I can't tell. It's so cool.
Yeah, and on the replays, it's showing the routes.
So yeah.
Along, you actually learn a little bit on why routes are run certain ways or why they're doing certain plays. And then when a pass is completed, they're showing like the speed. You can actually keep up with knowledgeable stuff that you can apply to your fantasy football teams.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Someone tweeted about that actually. It was like week 3 or something like that. And ever since I've watched it, I wish way more networks did that because it is awesome.
Yeah, as bad as Amazon has been, and it's not Amazon, I guess, but it's bad as a football has been on Thursday nights. The Next Gen Stats broadcast has been phenomenal.
Agreed. All right, well, that does it for us here at the Dynasty Gambit. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we will catch you all next week right here on the Going for Two Live Network. Thanks for tuning in. For Brian, Jay, and myself, have a good night. Enjoy the game. Thanks for tuning in.